Tarantino directs another Western. Let's do this. The Hateful Eight. Now, The Hateful Eight was once again written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. The film stars a lot of people. We got Kurt Russell, Samuel L. Jackson, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Bruce Dern, Tim Roth, Michael Madsen, and yeah, a couple more people. I can't name them all, but yeah, they're in there. The movie pretty much tells the story of 8 strangers who are all caught up in a blizzard, so they seek refuge in a cabin on top of a snowy mountain. And very soon, these 8 strangers grow more suspicious of one another, and the hostility ensues. And now we have our movie. Now, I was really looking forward to this movie. In case you didn't know, I have reviewed every single movie directed by Mr. Quentin Tarantino this year. And I'm glad to tell you that this movie is pretty awesome. First of all, the cinematography in this movie. I mean, this movie was shot on 70mm film, and it totally shows. I can't illustrate the old school spaghetti western vibe of that movie. It has that gritty vibe to it, and immediately you're like, okay, I'm watching a spaghetti western here. And the tone of the film is very different from anything that Tarantino has ever done before, because it is surprisingly dark. Even the soundtrack adds a lot to that. And that's another interesting fun fact for you guys, because normally Tarantino picks an existing score and gives it a new meaning by throwing it at one of his new films. And this time around, he actually has an original soundtrack composed by the one and only Ennio Morricone, who is very famous for his Western soundtracks. And the very first track, I'm like, ooh, that sounds dark. I mean, that sounds surprisingly dark for a Tarantino flick. Now let's look at our main characters, our Hateful Eight. First up, Kurt Russell. He's the man. He's cool. The first time you see this guy on screen, you're like, oh man, you still got it, man. You still got it. He's a badass, and he just has the authenticity look down to a T. Seriously. Loved him in this movie. Walton Goggins as the sheriff. I'm beginning to love this guy more with every performance. He was already good in Django Unchained, but this time around, holy shit, whole new level. Bruce Dern, the Western legend in this film. So great to have him in this movie. And Jennifer Jason Leigh. Oh my lord, that woman is incredible as the fugitive. Tim Roth and Michael Madsen, they're also back, and I love their respective roles. Michael Madsen is sort of the weakling because he doesn't have as much screen time as all the others, but Tim Roth, oh my god, again, he goes full British in this movie. Full British. The Mexican, I don't know the actor's name, but I liked him in the film. But let's get right to it. Samuel L. Jackson owns this film. This is his movie. He is every bit as awesome as he was as Jules in Pulp Fiction. Seriously, he is... I've said that a million times before, but Samuel L. Jackson and Tarantino, they just go hand in hand. He has exceptionally great delivery of his lines. No one delivers Tarantino dialogue like this guy. The Hateful Eight is actually a departure from Tarantino's latest work because it is a movie that is confined to one single location and is 100% dialogue driven. And that can be either hit or miss, especially since this movie is nearly 3 hours long. But at no point did I feel like I was watching a 3-hour-long movie. I was intrigued and on the edge of my seat throughout the entire runtime because the dialogue in this movie is so tension-filled that I'm like, whoa, I mean, I sat through Django Unchained, and even though I love this movie, I felt the runtime of this movie. This time around, no. Because this movie essentially is a thriller. And interestingly enough, we have a bunch of people confined to a single location, suspicious of one another, in a wintry scenario where the storm just gets worse and worse, and Kurt Russell in it. This movie obviously took inspiration from John Carpenter's The Thing. And interestingly enough, there's one track on the official soundtrack of John Carpenter's The Thing that was never used in the movie, but they use it in this one, and it works perfectly. Like most Tarantino, this movie is also very gory and very bloody. But in my humble opinion, this movie even goes further with the darkness than we have ever seen in any Tarantino ever. And that is saying something. Did it bother me? No. Because, like I said, it did support the plot. It wasn't just for shock value. It fit in perfectly with the characters. It fit in perfectly with the time period because this is a post-Civil War flick. What I also loved about the film is the fact that it returned to Tarantino's old formula of dividing the movie into different chapters, which really helps you to focus and introduce a new character during each new chapter. And I just love that storytelling device. And the confinement, the use of location in this movie is handled really, really fucking well. Watching this movie, I felt cold. I swear to God, I was putting on my jacket because this movie is really immersive. Just like John Carpenter's The Thing. Every time I watch this movie, I feel cold. And you're in the cabin with these characters. And at numerous times, it felt like I was watching a murder mystery. I was like, yeah, well, the Mexican, he is definitely the bad guy. Wait a second, it might be the Confederate? No, the sheriff. That's the one I'm keeping my eye on. Okay, no, not the sheriff. Maybe it's the little man. Okay, no, maybe it is the hangman. And this is how a movie like that should be. The dialogue just gets you so invested that constantly you're on the edge of your seat. This movie reminded me of Tarantino's very first film, Reservoir Dogs, and the tavern sequence in Inglourious Basterds, which happens to be my favorite sequence in the entire Inglourious Basterds film. Only that concept drawn out to be an entire movie. And I loved every second of it. The Hateful Eight definitely gets the gold medal. I'm so glad that I still had the chance to watch this movie this year because it will most definitely be on my top 10 favorite movies of this year. So The Hateful Eight, have you seen it? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you guys, as always, for watching, and if you like what you see here and you want to see more, then just subscribe.